thundered our gates, broke the old rules for division designs, and if you're still using small divisions, you are genuinely throwing manpower and industry away. Division designs are a lot more flexible than they used to be, and for the most part, it's about how much IC and manpower you want to invest in them. We'll start simple and then we'll keep on adding to see how exactly a division is designed. The first one are the poor men. This is the very basic division design that should honestly never be used. Instead of using 2 of these, you're better off honestly just using 1 of these as a 20 width. But if times are tough and you generally only have like 3 mill factories and 2 steel, then they will have to do. But in general, these are only used to fill holes and guard ports. Even for those, I wouldn't use them usually. You know, like these are just there to delay the enemy a little bit so that something actually useful can come in. And this is just the base template. You want at least 30 width with the new changes, because that way you can fit in the most amount of regimental support companies, which just gives you more stats. Going bigger than this is fine, but this is the least amount you should ever build, no matter what type of division you design, unless, you know, it's a paratrooper or something like the cheap garrisons. Any division that will see standard combat should be 30 width at least. Current doctrine is that offensive divisions are around 36, 38 width. There's also no real incentive to go for 5 regiments, because you get the same amount of stats if you add 5 regiments or 3 regiments. The only difference is, you know, you get higher combat width, you get more stats, you get other bonuses like that, but there's no benefit for the regimental support companies if you do that. As I said, this is the base template. From that on, we will slowly transition over to the chat division. This is a very expensive infantry division, which, you know, shouldn't be used in multiplayer, but for single player, that is honestly my bread and butter that I use most of the time. My army consists of, I'd say, like 80% of this, then special forces, and then tanks, motorized and such. This is perfect if you just want to press a battle plan arrow and go. And this is where the changes to how divisions are designed come into play. Of course, there are a lot of things here, but we don't necessarily need a lot of things. There's a lot of little knobs that we can tune. In my opinion, this is the stuff that you should focus on in this order. First off, you should get support AA, then engineers, then flame tanks, then field hospitals, and then we have super heavy artillery here. But artillery is fine as well. Depending on the area you're fighting in, you would also pick logistics companies, but as I said, we'll get into everything. Let's first talk about AA, because every division needs AA. Since no compromise, no surrender, the CAS calculation has changed a little bit. It used to be that you only needed 10 air attack to get the max amount of CAS reduction if your divisions are getting bombed. That has changed to around 55. And you cannot reach this with 1 support battalion. You could switch out the AA, and that is honestly a valid strategy if you are in need of like logistics companies and you still want the super heavy artillery, but the super heavy artillery is also very supply intensive, so why are you doing this? The regimental supports are also already a very nice slider, because on the surface level, this is what you want at the very least. You want 1 support AA. You won't get the max amount of CAS damage reduction, but you will still take out a couple of planes and you have a decent amount of CAS damage reduction. If the enemy has a lot of planes, you can also just swap all of these into AA batteries. You get another 90 air attack, and the way that air attack works is you want the 55 to get the max amount of damage reduction. Any air attack above that gives you a chance to take out an enemy plane. But in general, you want the heavy weapons company because they give you more breakthrough and defense. The heavy weapons company is better than the infantry guns. Infantry guns is also fine. You get more soft attack there, but in general, heavy weapons is just better. Next thing are the engineers. You will usually just run normal engineer companies. If you have the special forces points, you can also swap into assault engineers. That way you get a little bit more breakthrough, and they also have better terrain modifiers. They are more offensive, but worse in defense. But these are only for infantry. Like with tanks, you will use the armored engineers. The only flame tank that you really care about is the medium flame tank, because that one has the best terrain modifiers, and you get 5% breakthrough on all infantry. Plus, because we designed this as a breakthrough flame tank, we also get a lot more breakthrough from that as well. Next thing is field hospitals. The only important thing about field hospitals is the XP loss reduction, because with minus 45% XP loss reduction at max level, most of your divisions will just be veterans. And then you also get HP for infantry and motorized, which means you take less damage, which means you also get more XP, or you take less XP losses. And then super heavy artillery is not that important. Usually you will pick support artillery, especially if you're on siege artillery with all of the modifiers. It's just, you know, like that requires you to have, you need the flame tanks. That's one special project point. And then you need 2 more for this. And you might want the assault engineers instead. So it's just a lot of investment that you will usually not see in a normal game. But it's very good because you get collateral damage, you get a ton of combat stats, and you get fort attack. In general, you will pick support artillery, and then if you are pushing into the Soviet Union or South America, or in general just places where you don't have supply, you will pick logistics companies. And if it were up to me, then you will probably X support AA if you really need additional supply, because the helicopter brigade just gives you another 17% supply use, and then you add the AA to get back to your breakpoint. That is the best infantry division for pushing in like South America. Admittedly, like at that point, you will also just swap into special forces. That's just the same division, but you just replace all of the infantry with special forces. Marines are also really good for the naval invasion penalty. I haven't really played that much with rangers yet, but you know, of course, if you're fighting in primarily jungles, then they are also good. One thing I want to mention about combat width is the exact combat width doesn't matter that much. Current meta is that you're going around 36, 38. So long as you're between 30 and 38, it doesn't matter too much. Like any division that you add, it's just gonna be more expensive. You have to invest more manpower, you get more IC, but it'll be fine, even if you don't add more infantry, mountaineers, or whatever. One additional thing I made with this one is I replaced the AA with the armored recon company for the same reason that you would pick the medium flame tank company, because if you make a light recon tank, which is very expensive, you also get another 100 breakthrough. Plus, once again, this one does not have any MIOs, and we don't have good doctrines, so your breakthrough will be even higher than this. But it's still the first thing I would switch out if I need more supply. At that point, you can also switch into helicopter transports. They're not as good as logistics and helicopter brigades, but with that you get to keep your other slots. So this is very cool about new division design. Doesn't really matter for multiplayer, but in single player, if you want to have a little bit of fun and you play ultra late game, you can just, you know, mix and match and use different strategies that you wouldn't use in a normal game. So that's kind of cool about special projects. I still wish it didn't take so long to get any of it done, but it's cool. When we come to motorized, we have honestly just the same thing. Don't tell that to anyone. I don't think mech is that good. Like, you know, mech is of course better than motorized. It's just so much more expensive. Like, you get about twice the defense, a little bit better offensive stats for 2-3 times as much IC investment. For single player, I honestly never build mechanized. Motorized is perfectly fine. The one thing that you should keep in mind for motorized is that you should make your flame tanks faster. Right now they are slowing my motorized because they're only 7 kmh, which is fine, but you know, if you want them to be faster, you should of course adjust your flame tank. This is an important distinction between the infantry and the motorized. These definitely want logistics. They need logistics. The fuel usage is nice, but honestly, primarily you just want the supply usage, which is also why generally, if you can afford it, you will pick the helicopter transports instead. And that applies to all motorized divisions, like divisions with a motor. Not motorized divisions, but you know, motorized divisions, not motorized divisions. Divisions that go vroom. Here, once again, you could switch out the support AA for self-propelled super heavy artillery or also helicopters, and then, you know, you add more regiments. But that all depends on how much you're being bombed. Like, if you're not being bombed at all, if the enemy doesn't build cast, then of course, honestly, just toss it away, get more stats in here. And then when we come to motorized artillery, I don't ever build them because I do prefer to use tanks. But if you like them, then this one should be fine. It's a little bit low on the orc here because, you know, like if you're running them, then you should also of course switch into flying batteries. And you probably won't switch into tank destroyer forces, so you would have more orc, but this one should be fine. Before we get into tank templates, we should probably talk about the tank designs first. Armored companies don't really matter, just honestly armor main gun, make sure they don't slow your tanks down, and that's it. Servos editor here. The first tank design in Vijo shows is a noob-friendly tank design, because that one has high speed and reliability, and these stats do not matter at all in multiplayer. Because of that, all other designs are based on the multiplayer philosophy, and if you want to use them in single player, you should keep your reliability and speed higher if you are not that advanced. Because frankly, Vijo also uses these with the high reliability. Like, if you want a proper tank, just try to reach 10 kmh here. It's also fine to just switch to the Christie suspension to do it. You do lose out on 4 breakthrough if you do this. If you're using them for multiplayer, then you should probably just focus on the stats rather than the speed. Let's start off with the self-propelled artillery. For self-propelled artillery, we mostly care about soft attack, because we get a breakthrough malice. Breakthrough is our second most important stat. Then speed and reliability are stats that are not that important. These are a little bit controversial stats, you might say, because reliability is a stat that doesn't really matter, because if you never attrition, you will not lose that many tanks, and that is the meta in multiplayer. Stack as many stats on it as you can, and any losses that you do take, you can just replace with production losses. And that is accounting for the reliability change that Paradox did. I haven't analyzed it myself yet, but if the multiplayer crowd doesn't still care about reliability, then it can't be too bad, right? For new players, you should probably still just pick easy maintenance, get a little bit lower on the armor. Like, that is honestly something that I do. I go for like 80-85% reliability, just because I don't want to bother with the headache of just microing that much around. And it doesn't matter against the AI. And speed, similarly, is a stat that I neglected here. For me, it's a stat that I care about every couple of months, just to have a little bit of a different playstyle. But it's only really useful for overrunning and encirclements. Overrunning, doesn't really matter. Like, it's useful, but if you have good tanks, then you also don't really need to overrun, because you can just click. For the most part, you will just make sure that your tanks are 4 kmh, because if they're slower than that, you can't save them. Your men are incapable of creating a tank that is slower than 4 kilometers an hour. It's honestly just a playstyle preference. I built light tanks often half a year ago, knowing full well they are worse than medium tanks, but it's just super fun to have fast tanks, especially when you fight the Soviet Union, you know? Like, your front line is here, and 2 seconds later, your light tank division is in Moscow. That's just super fun. Same with the medium tanks. I can quickly show you. That is a medium tank design. It's not really meta anymore. It's honestly just the same as the self-propelled artillery. With the flame tanks, we're first gonna go into the breakthrough flame tank. This one is, of course, very expensive, but you just make your divisions so much stronger. Here, once again, I just added the engines, because otherwise we couldn't save this design. You don't really need the engines here. You just need them if you don't have the proper upgrades here, like with Orkmo. If you get Armored Spearhead, Grand Assault and such, and then you also get proper upgrades here, you can just double the breakthrough of this flame tank. Keep your engine in line with your divisions, just so the flame tank doesn't slow down your division. With the cheap flame tanks, generally this shouldn't be used, but I usually build it in the beginning of the game before I have the tech for the proper flame tank. Build these and convert them later, that's also fine. You still get the modifiers, even if you don't have flame tanks. One of my guilty pleasures, as I mentioned earlier, is the light tank. It's just very cheap, very fast. Against the AI, this has perfectly fine stats, and you have to make sure that your trucks are also fast enough to keep up, but honestly, it's just a very fun design to use that I recommend you try out once in a while, because honestly, it's just so fun, especially if you fight the Soviet Union. We also have the light Recon design, which is eerily similar, only cares about speed so much that he can be produced and keep up with your other divisions. Otherwise, you just go full balls to the walls for breakthrough. The heavy tank is also not something that you generally want to build, since they are very expensive and have worse terrain malices than medium flame tanks. I just love them, you know? I think about them more than I think about the Roman Empire. Can you believe that? These play a similar role to the super special propelled arty that I showed earlier, where they're very slow, but they just crush with their 70 breakthrough, 105 armor, and 70 soft attack. Plus, once again, no proper doctrines for them. And it's also something that I would recommend you play with just every once in a while, because they are very fun. They're very expensive, but you just click on a tile and the tile joins your side. Like, it's just that simple, you know? And here is the modern tank design. Do you get it? They're so bad, you're better off turning off Hoi 4. The worst thing about them is just that you're not allowed to put guns on them. I do not know why Paradox does not want gun on tank, but that just makes modern tank bad. Against the AI, you will never need this. You will never build this. Or you should never build this against the AI. But this is the current meta design for tank destroyers. We're gonna start off with the self-propelled artillery. One thing I did is I replaced the armored recon, or the AA with armored recon, and put them down here. We are, of course, using heavy tank destroyer support. We are using the armored recon support for the multitude of buffs you get here. And I think you can guess what the light tank and the heavy tank template are gonna look like. Here, one thing, this is not the ideal template. Let's say self-propelled support, individual excellence. Like, if you pick something like this, you suddenly have 42 orc, and then you would add more tanks, depending on your doctrines, depending on how much orc you get. For the tanks, it's a little bit harder to give you the perfect template. It's just keep in mind that your orc should be above 30, 35, 40 is very good for the tank destroyer templates. I can offer you 2, and this is not 100% figured out yet. This one is, if you have 100% green air, then this one is just straight up better because you get the most amount of stats. If you have no air uptime, then right now we just run a motorized AA, is what I mean. Maybe we add like a self-propelled AA just so we can squeeze in more tank destroyers here, or it does depend on how it will work out in the future. But right now, these are 2 very capable templates. Now that you can add AA batteries here, maybe you're fine with just doing this. I'm gonna leave that up to the multiplayer eggheads to figure out how wrong this is. It will probably change a little bit, but this is a perfect starting point right now. The only division that I did not design are Space Marines. Something like this would work. Make these heavy on armor so you can't get pierced. Space Marines are boring. You should just, like, look at this. Look at how many toys we have now. All of these are... All of these are viable in single player. Look at how many toys we have. And then we also have the cheapest Garrison Division is a single horse. The better division is you make very cheap light tanks, which I didn't actually show earlier. This one just wants the 80% hardness, so you want to make it as cheap as possible as you can. As cheap as possible as you can, huh? But you don't want to add the wheel suspension. That way you still keep the hardness, so you will take loss lesses. And then you will fill this out first, and then you will pick the military police. And after that, the motorized military police. Motorized military police is better than normal military police for the amount of suppression that you get for the IC investment. But you first want to add all of the light tanks. And then we can take a look at the Army HQ divisions. We have a whole 3 to pick from, but they, that's just 1 to pick from. You can check out my Army HQ guide for more info, but this is the one that you want for most of your generals. This one is fine as well. It's a little bit less expensive, but you can afford the 1.8k men and the 120 IC. The only thing is, the headquarters staff right now doesn't work. I think it's always on. That's the only HQ support that doesn't do anything right now, and that you might want to swap out with, like, the special operations coordination, the signal staff. This one is, as you can see, more CP intensive, so the more generals you have on the battlefield, the better it is. So the cheap one is probably going to be the meta, and of course, if you want your general to be fast, you just add a motorized HQ. Also, one thing I didn't create, because it honestly doesn't matter, is the armored maintenance company, and then you just add as many light tanks on it as you can. This thing will not see combat, but you have an 82% equipment capture ratio. It will just kill off encirclements. After you subscribe, please watch this Army HQ guide so that I can finally return home.